What is up, MFers? Welcome to the most difficult time of the year to fish. We are finally approaching September. This is a month that scares many anglers all the way across the country because the fish are doing a ton of different things, and at the same time, you have so much working against you. But if you follow the baits and the locations I'm gonna share with you guys, you can have some successful days on the water, not just catching numbers, but catching bigger fish than the people that are fishing around you. You're not gonna wanna miss this one. I got some special baits, including a soon-to-be released bait that I'll show you at the end of the video. Okay, so as we dive into what is happening in September, when I say that there's a lot going on and a lot of things that are going against you, let me explain on what I mean by that. September is a time of the year where there's a major transition. So not only are there all these fish that have been out in the super hot heat, especially this year, been crazy hot in Texas, in the South, all over the country, but they've now seen every bait under the freaking sun. Every bait, every presentation, every area. And to add to that, now we have lakes that are cooling down. We have lakes that are turning over, which is where the hot water was on top and the cold water was on the bottom. Well, now we're gonna have some cooler nights in a lot of places in the country. That's gonna flip. We're gonna have issues with off-colored water. It's gonna get green, algae blooms. Guys, there's just not a lot of great things about September. But like I said, I got a couple ways that you guys can conquer it. I got a bunch of rods laying here with presentations and baits based on different areas of where the fish like to go in September. I don't know how many we're gonna end up with, but we're gonna give you guys a blueprint to have a successful day during the toughest time of the year. So like I said, a lot of things going against us here. And so we wanna make sure that we are fishing the highest percentage areas as possible. And since the fish have seen a million different types of baits, we're gonna fish the sneakiest stuff we can all season long. One thing I think about in September is when you have that flux of the summer fish that have been, a lot of them offshore, and then as it gets hotter and hotter, we got that thermocline rising, so the dissolved oxygen is all at the thermocline or above it, and then there's nothing down below it. So the fish don't wanna be deep in a lot of areas. When that starts to happen and you get a body of water where it gets a lot of shallow vegetation, a lot of shallow brush piles, those are the areas that I want to target. So first off, we're gonna go very, very simple. We're gonna go to your body of water and find the visible brush piles. A lot of these brush piles that have to be so shallow, if the thermocline is 8 feet or below, or above, I guess, you're gonna have to fish visible cover for the first time of the year, because generally when I'm fishing, I wanna target pieces of cover, pieces of structure that are difficult to find. So a lot of these man-made lakes that I grew up fishing, you'd have 800 brush piles that are sticking halfway out of the water. Well, every Timmy is gonna be in there flipping those all summer long, and then I wanna find the 27 of them that are out deeper just a little bit to where you can't see them, of course. That's where the better fish are gonna be, and that's where they're gonna get a lot less pressure. Well, this time of year, when the thermocline's rising, the dissolved oxygen level is going up, you gotta fish those visible brush piles. And so fishing those visible brush piles is gonna require you to fish a lot of them, and you need to use your brain a little bit. Start to think about the visible brush piles that are on points. There's other pieces of cover nearby, whether that be a rock pile, a good riprap bank, a sharp drop off like a channel swing bank. That's when you need to start really dialing in what brush piles are better than others. And my favorite ways to target these brush piles is really a couple different ways. My number one bait in presentation, I would say, for the month of September, whether it be targeting these shallow brush piles, targeting the wood on a lot of these high percentage, channel swing areas, points, and we'll get into one more factor that's extremely important in just a second, is with a... Right quick before we get back into fishing, I gotta tell you, this video is sponsored by the Upside app. Guys, every year we tell ourselves we're gonna save more and spend less. How is that even going to be possible though, when you got to pay for all these inflated gas prices? All these everyday essentials are getting more and more expensive all the time. Gas, groceries, going out to eat. It's crazy how expensive it's gotten. But now, thanks to my 2023 money back hack, you can get cash back on all those purchases using the Upside app. Let me tell you about it. All you have to do to get started is you got to download the free Upside app, use my promo code Milliken, and you'll get an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas. Next, all you got to do, claim that offer on the app for whatever you're buying on Upside. Pay as usual with a credit or debit card. Follow the steps in the app, and you will get paid. I use the Upside app every time I go to the local gas station and have racked up hundreds of dollars back in rewards. In comparison to credit card rewards programs or loyalty programs, you can earn 3 times more cash back using the Upside app, and you can cash out anytime directly to your bank account, to PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Plus, Upside won't sell your personal information to third parties. We're all worried about that. You don't got to worry about any of that with Upside. Upside users are earning hundreds of dollars back every single year, so it's no wonder they got that 4.8 star rating on the App Store. So one more time, to get started, all you have to do is download the free Upside app, use my promo code Milliken, and get an extra 25 cents back for every gallon on your first tank of gas. Smaller worm presentation than they have seen all summer long. So everyone and their mom has been out there ripping around the old 10-inch worm. Nothing wrong with that. You can still catch a load of fish, have great days fishing in September with the 10-inch worm. My favorite thing to do this time of year, especially when flipping, is to go with a smaller size worm. So you can either buy a 4 to 7 inch worm to flip around, or you can take this 6 cents worm right here, rip quite a bit of that off of there, and you'll have a lot more of a finesse presentation. Now this, for whatever reason, I don't know if it's because they like to get on smaller worms this time of year, or because they've seen so many big ones that they're just conditioned to it, but I've been running this pattern for a lot of years. Really has saved my butt in so many of these tournaments. And you guys saw me cash a check and catch a big bass of a tournament early in the year, is with this real shorter, smaller profile compact worm. I fish on a 1/4 ounce tungsten weight. I don't peg it, and I flip it in 2 or 3 casts to these smaller brush piles, and I'm on to the next one. I'm covering water, really flipping it at anything that's high percentage. Once again, that might be a brush pile or a stump, or a laydown that's on a point, a channel swing bank, or very importantly also a shade line. So this is my #1 bait in presentation. I like to flip this bait right here also on 17-pound test fluorocarbon. Anywhere 15 to 20 is great. If you don't have giant fish in your body of water, you can go with 15. If you get really nasty cover and giant fish, I'd go with 20. 17 seems to be like a nice size. And I've been pitching this rod all year in the opens. This 7.3 heavy 6 cents ESP rod. I love this blank for pitching around. Not flipping heavy cover, but pitching around. You guys saw me at Bugs Island. This is the rod I use the whole time. 8-speed flipping reel, and it's just absolutely money for that technique. Now, as we talk about those same types of areas where you have, you know, some higher percentage shallow cover that's in the water, you start to think about some of those shade lines and laydowns that are associated with a lot of those places where those fish have to move up. They have to follow that creek channel in, whether it be to be a resident fish and ambush different bait fish, or it's just simply because they need shade because it's been so hot and now the dissolved oxygen's gone. You start thinking about topwater, and I got a couple topwater presentations that I love this time of year. One of them is going to be a popper, and there's 2 different ways that I will fish a similar popper, and that is a regular popper. This is the splashback popper from 6 cents, or a Vega frog, which is a poppin' frog. Obviously, a little bit more duckweed, a little bit more grass mixed in up there. I will throw the weedless version, of course, the frog. But if you can get away with it, I love the hookup ratio of this guy right here, and it's my favorite time of the year to throw a popper. If you guys come up, no matter what time of the day, first light in the morning, the hottest part of the day in the afternoon, it does not matter. Come up to anything that's shaded on a channel swing bank. And when I say channel swing, you know, I'm not talking about 100 feet of water right off the bank, like some of these Ozark lakes, some of these Highland reservoirs. I'm talking like it's 2 feet deep on a flat and it's 5 feet deep in this little depression. That's when you're going to want to throw this guy, when you have a little bit of shade. If there's duckweed mixed in, if there's other types of vegetation, throw that Vega frog. It's absolutely killer. And let's kind of use that as a way to segue into a pattern in an area that is highly productive this time of year, and that is going as far back as you can get in a body of water to find cooler water or current. Most important time of the year for that, in my opinion. I remember John Cox won the Forest Wood Cup. I think it was Wheeler Lake, and he found one creek where he went back as far as he could go, and then he went back way further than that because there was a population of fish that lived up there because the water was cooler, there was current coming in. He won the tournament mostly using a frog, fishing the exact same scenario I'm talking about, where this dissolved oxygen is really high, fishing pressure's at an all-time high, you have to get away from everyone else. He moved back with his aluminum boat. I don't know if he chainsawed trees or what he did to get back there, got to an area that only he could get back to, and he won the tournament, $500,000 because of this. That's something that even if you fish a 50-acre lake, it's something that plays this time of year. Getting into even these just little cuts and drains where there's no water coming in, going as far back into that little V as possible, throwing your frog way up there in the any type of grass that does exist up there. Anywhere from that to being at a large reservoir like Wheeler, where some of these creeks go 20 miles off the main lake. The large majority of fish that are up a creek, if you're going to keep going, you need to go as far back as you can get. 90% of these fish, from what I have found, especially this time of year, especially when you want a little bit of moving water, cooler water, keep an eye on your temperature gauge, 90% of those fish are going to live as far back as they can get. They're not going to just stop at any point. They're not going to be like, oh, it's 2 feet deep, 100 feet up there, but it's 2.5 feet deep here, so I'm going to stop here. No, they're going to keep going until they figure out the absolute shallowest they can be that still holds a population of bait fish, cooler water, moving water. You guys get the point. So I'm going topwater, a popper in that situation. You can still flip your way around with that little worm, or let's work into another one of my all-time favorite baits, no matter where we're at in September, and that is this guy right here, the drop shot worm. Very, very simple. This is a worm that has won hundreds of thousands of dollars on a drop shot the last handful of years, and really the last 25 years. But this is my favorite month to throw it if I really could throw it anytime, because it's so sneaky and it's so effective in any type of condition. If you don't have the thermocline set up super high in the column, if you don't have that dissolved oxygen, the fish are going to be spread out everywhere. You're going to have cooling water temperatures, you're going to have grass dying off, you're going to have, bait fish all over the lake. Doesn't matter if it's 2 feet of water or 40 feet of water. If you have that situation, you're going to have fish all over the place, and that's when you get a 3/8 ounce weight on there, you get a 1/0 or a size 1 straight shank hook, and you go to town with this drop shot worm. You can flip it into those exact same brush piles. You can throw it on laydowns. You can fish grass edges. You can flip your way back in those same areas where you throw that topwater frog, the topwater popper, or if those fish are still out on ledges, points like they are all over the place, that's when this guy is going to shine. It's not going to work better than some presentations in some specific instances, but it's going to be the most versatile thing that you can have tied on. If you guys are fishing a 5-acre pond this time of year, throw this. If you're fishing a 100,000-acre body of water, a natural reservoir, a river system, whatever, also throw this. You cannot go wrong. You guys know how I rig it up. 7-foot, medium. This is my only drop shot rod I use now. This Team USA series that 6th Sense has, and a Stradic. I like to, 10-pound braid to 8-pound fluorocarbon leader. You can go a little bit heavier if you're fishing heavier cover, or if you got really finicky fish in open water, 6-pound test. Absolutely freaking killer this time of year. Cole said I couldn't do it in one take. I'm going to do it in one take. All right, so let's talk about something else that's happening this time of year, and that is we have a lot of bait fish grouped up in open water areas that are not really the same main lake basins. They're not all the way back in creeks like they'll be in October and November. We're talking about bait fish that are just in a flux period. They're in a transition space where they want to move back. They're in the first third of the creeks. They're still on the mouths of some of the big main lake ledges and stuff, or for whatever reason they've moved around marinas. They're in big bays, and there's bait fish everywhere and bass that don't have any reason to be anywhere else except for eating these bait fish. You guys have seen the videos lately. That's when you go to town with this guy right here. Get your hover juggle game right. The 6 cents juggle minnow, whether that be on this hover stroll rig like I like to fish it with that 1/0 hook and the nail weight in the front, or especially if you have fish underneath bait balls, fish it on a little jig head, a natural colored jig head, and you will absolutely smoke them. I don't know if I need to tell you guys too much about how to fish that technique, because I have made so many videos lately fishing this technique in open water. You've seen the exact fish, how they react on live scope. You've seen that they catch giant fish, they catch small fish, and everything in between. Deadly, deadly effective technique. If you do have forward-facing sonar, or really if you're fishing around, without it, if you're fishing around a lot of places with bait fish. So I got one more technique that is not going to be crazy. It's not going to be a surprise to you, but since we're talking sneaky stuff this time of year, and if you have a scenario where there still is a lot of offshore fish, whether it be on points, ledges, creek channels, swing, high spots, rock piles, stuff like that, again, I like to go as natural as possible, and to me, there's nothing more natural than a hair jig. I really, down here in Texas, will throw this thing 12 months out of the year. If I didn't live in Texas and I had more northern strain fish, I would still throw it from March to October, November, pre-spawn, post-spawn, summer, and now into this fall phase. The hair jig is phenomenal. Again, anytime you have these offshore schools or groups of fish that have now seen, again, every lure in the books, this guy is deadly effective. And this is the rod that I throw it on, the 7.6 medium reaction series. The movement series from 6 Cents is absolutely killer. 12-pound test fluoro if you can get away with it per the cover and size of fish, or 15-pound test if you're after absolute giants. Now, there's one thing I want to talk to you guys about before we go here, and this is a bait that we're coming out with from 6 Cents here this month in September, and it's a special bait because it's different than really anything that's out there on the market. It's gotten a lot of hype lately because it's caught, a lot of great fish through our testing phase, and what's exciting to me is it's a very, very natural bait that can be fished a million different ways. So here it is right here. A lot of you guys have seen it on social media. This is the 6 Cents Panorama, and this is the biggest version. This is the 9-inch version. As we release this bait this month, we're coming out with the 9-inch, the 6.5-inch, and the 5-inch versions of this bait. And as you guys notice, just in my hand here, this thing, it couldn't look more like a real fish, but lots of confusion about how to rig this thing, and that's totally understandable. You can also notice how lively the action and the tail is, and the paint jobs and everything that come with this bait are. It's a special, unique bait. It's really going to catch a lot of fish for people across the country, which makes me so excited about it. And as we get further into launching this bait, we're going to have some really tiny micro sizes that you guys have seen me jig head fishing and soon to be crappie fishing for some giant fish as well. But the cool thing about this bait is it doesn't have, you guys notice, it doesn't have a boot tail, doesn't have a wedge tail, nothing. It just is what it is. And people see this bait, and if you remember the 6 Sack from 6 Cents, the subscription you get every month, we sent a couple of these out actually before releasing this bait to members of that service. But I'm getting questions like crazy about how do I rig this bait? How do I fish this bait? It doesn't make any sense to me. Is it a swim bait? Is it a drop shot bait? Is it a fluke style bait? What is this thing? And the answer to that is really, it doesn't have to be anything, any types of those baits. You can just fish it a lot of different types of ways. I have caught some really good fish on this bait. Really, my favorite way is to fish it in this size, the 9-inch size, and I'll put a 12-aught weighted beast hook on this thing, which has a 1/2 ounce weight. I'll rig it sideways, so it has the screw lock there and the side hook comes out that way. It's a really narrow bait, as you can see, so hookup ratio is great. And it actually spirals down really slowly like a flutter spoon, but when you rip it, it does have enough of a little flange and a little widening point there at the tail that it will kick really hard. So you kick up there and then spin around in circles. But that's just one way you can fish it. You could catch them drop shotting, Tex is rigged on this bait. It's going to be a phenomenal free rig bait. Really, that's one way that I don't think people have talked about. That's probably going to be my favorite way to fish it, is a free rig. It's obviously, you can fish on a Texas rig, a Tokyo rig. You can split shot it, Carolina rig it. The best way I think that I've maybe seen the action look on this bait is as either a scrounger trailer or a chatterbait trailer. No skirt on the chatterbait, just throwing it. This is huge, obviously, but the 5-inch version looks phenomenal. And I'm just excited for people to pick these up, experiment with them, and really see in this day and age, 2023, September, October, the toughest times of the year to catch fish, how you can use a natural bait that doesn't necessarily fit the mold of everything else these fish have seen all year long, and catch giant fish that are just unsuspecting of a new bait, a new genre of bait that is available. But yeah, drop some questions down below. I'll try to get back to as many of you guys as possible. If you have any questions about where the fish set up, what types of baits, if you have baits that work, then maybe you want to give me some tips, that's great. Drop a comment down below. And good luck this September, guys. Just remember, you know, if you've made it this far in the year, you're still out there grinding, you're among very few fishermen that are still die hard enough to be out there, because it's been so hot, it gets tougher, and you're still out there grinding. So kudos to you. This is not a death sentence to your fishing success this month. It's just a little bit tougher, but if you use those techniques I showed you, you will catch more fish. Thanks for watching, Mavers. I'm out of here. Peace. Good job.